Okay, everybody, thank you for joining. This is the Town of Andover Board of Finance Special Budget Meeting on Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. So we will go ahead and call the meeting to order and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
of the United States of America,
the
and
Republic,
to the republic
which
we stand, one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
with
and
justice
for
and
all.
justice.
Okay. Thank you. Next order of business is public speak. I think it doesn't look like we have any external members of the public. We have Chris, and she's just here for support, I assume, but you're welcome to contribute if you care to. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and begin our budget workshop. So as I had said, again, I apologize for the problems last week. Don't know what happened. We did the same thing today and it did not happen. Same computer, everything. So I'm not sure what's going on. But Eric and I did a couple of dry runs and then we logged in. So we're all here now. So lesson learned, try it beforehand and make sure we're good. But we'll go ahead and get started. As I had mentioned kind of in some of my email following last week's non-meeting, I think what we need to do today is really get down into the nitty-gritty with the budget, go through line by line, department by department, see where we have concerns. Anybody has concerns on any particular line items should raise them, and then we'll try to move through and make any adjustments we see fit. So I'm going to go ahead and share. We did have an updated budget file today. Probably most of you hadn't had a chance to download and review. It's just like 4 hours ago or so.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I did see that. Before we get started, could we ask Eric, Mark, like what areas were updated? I wonder, we should probably, and Chris is here too, maybe we can choose a new color, like magenta or something, if something I'm in it quite often and I don't know how we'd tell what part got updated. Just a thought.
That's actually a very good idea, Joanne.
It is a good
Spending a
idea.
lot of time in it. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they did. I don't know if they, so maybe we could pick a color tonight thanks. Yeah, I think it would be helpful.
Yep, not a problem.
So
at the last meeting, let's start on the income side. So if you scroll up to around line 16.
And while Eric's scrolling, Mark, can I ask one more procedural question?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank
Mark,
you. So many thoughts came up and I know we didn't have Eric last time and different things. And with the new charter revision and the time crunch, I know I'm feeling like the crunch now because of all of this, but we'll get there. So quick question is, I know this is a special meeting. We're not allowed to add anything to this agenda, sorry, but under budget discussion is pretty wide open, right?
Yeah, I would say so. As long as it's into the budget, we're developing.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. All right, I'll shush now and listen. Thank you.
Mark, I think you're actually sharing the wrong one. The latest one in that file
you're right.
Be 3.19.25.
Yeah, I had them both open as Joanne mentioned. I think I was and I actually put that exact file name in my email. I had it both open to just do a quick compare. Give me just a sec here. Oh, trying to get rid of this tab. There we go. Okay.
All right, and again, if you can go to 16 under municipal stabilization, the reason why I put that in yellow is that, like all governmental revenues, the state does not have a budget yet. So all of these are best guesses. It sounds like there probably will be enough pushback from the little towns that they will probably hold the towns harmless on ECF funding and restore the $89,000, but we have no idea when they're even, the governor's still resisting doing that. So we have no idea when and if the legislature and the governor will come to an agreement on that. The municipal stabilization fund, that's kind of a weird one because it's money given to the town, supposedly money back from taxation. But if the town goes over 2.5% increase in the total budget increase, or alternatively, or it's higher than the rate of inflation, which the state is saying is 3.1% inflation. Right now, we're just under that number, so we get the full, will be estimated to get the full amount, but we only have about 0.1 of percent of budget increase before that number gets cut in half, and we lose 21,000 in revenue. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Right now, we're okay, but if there are increases, we need to be worrying about that because we potentially will lose, roughly 21,000 in revenue.
Okay.
So
Eric,
our sorry,
Go ahead,
our overall budget,
Hang on, I'm
Okay,
just gonna
go
shut
ahead,
my
Liz.
window. Fire alarm going.
Liz, while he stepped to, oh,
Okay,
yeah. I was gonna say, so our overall budget cannot be more than what percent? Can't be greater than what percent?
it's basically 3.1%.
Increase. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not the mill increase.
Right.
It's the
Oh,
total
okay.
budget expenditure,
Okay,
or total by taxation, basically. You can look at it that way.
Eric, have we had this line in here before? I mean, is it, sorry, I'm looking at it, my eyes. I'm
Yes,
assuming we did because we go through this every year and then it gets funded. So this,
Yep.
this would kind of be this is a safeguard for that, right? That's what you're saying? This amount of money?
no, it's really, that municipal stabilization fund is given to the towns automatically. That's something that's been negotiated for many years as part of the budget process. It's just in the last couple of years, they've put this,
The
stick
stipulation or, yeah.
along with it, saying that, oh, if your budget goes up more than a certain amount of money, we're gonna give you less money, which means your budget will go up even more. So it's one of those kind of really stupid things, but I just wanted you to be aware of that.
But it sounds like they're protecting towns too, to try to keep spending reasonable if they give them a 3% window. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So if we could, let's go ahead and I'd like to start from the top and just, most of this is going to be what it's going to be. Now we have the proposed current year taxes derived from the mill rate calculation sheet. Eric, we have not revised the grand list for the most recent Board of Selectmen decision to change the prorate factor on the motor vehicle calculation. Is that correct?
No, we haven't. So if you looked at the mill rate calculation sheet, the estimated mill rate still is based off an 85% initial assessment for motor vehicles, not a 90%. We've asked the company that helps us produce the grand list to give us the updated values for 90%. As soon as we have it, we'll plug it in. Looking at what other towns have done, that seems like it's going to take about 1% away from the mill rate increase, roughly, because it's going to increase the taxable grand list. Right now the taxable grand list is going down 2%. Once that changes in place, it should be going down no more than 1%. So that will have about a 1% positive increase on the percent mill rate increase, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, does everybody understand that they had changed the way that you could evaluate the value of motor vehicles, which, you know, reduced the grand list for most towns. And then they gave some relief that you could use an alternate calculation of the, I guess, depreciation of the value of the vehicle for all intents and purposes. So that'll help bring the grand list back into line with what it's been previously. And the Board of Selectmen voted to make that change. But it requires a lot of recalculation of the grand list, so we don't have that data in here yet. Okay,
Yep.
any questions on that?
So we're saying, yeah, we'll go, it will, yeah, it's gonna be, they're able to tax the automobiles or the motor vehicles and things of that nature at the higher rate, right? And
At a
then
slightly higher rate.
generate, right, generate
Correct.
more taxes. Whereas before we would have had to make it up on the residential side or, you know, for that kind of thing, I'm thinking.
Yeah, the overall mill rate would go
Yeah,
up. So
yeah.
it doesn't really change the tax picture, it just changes where it's allocated. The, you know,
Right.
the mill rate is
And last question on that, because Eric was telling us the spots that got updated. So this page has been updated up to what the changes you made today, Eric, so far? Or whoever
Correct.
put them in?
Correct, except I will say that the change in the healthcare did not, for some reason, the formula got wiped out again. So it's not propagating. Chris changed it in the main tab, which shows the healthcare, but it's not propagating up to the actual line item. So
okay.
we're gonna have to correct that tomorrow. It does, all total, it's just, well, if you think about it, it's 1% of the healthcare budget. So it's about $1,900 difference.
That's what it'll come to. Yeah, I was trying to do some backwards math and I kept checking to
Yep.
see if it had been recalculated. But
Yep.
it'll go from increasing, you know, whatever you paid this year, the final bill from, you know, the 8% thing that you put everywhere back to the 7% that got voted in. Right. I knew that between so a lot of adjustments that had to be made that we wouldn't have the most update thing, but yeah, but I get it. And we still have a few more meetings to go. So, okay.
Yep.
thank you.
Only a couple.
I know, but it's hard to, like, we lost last week. Understandably, people were volunteers that spend a lot of time on this. So when we didn't have a lot of the stuff, right, you know, there was a mistake. And then Eric's away, he deserves vacation. And then if we don't have that, it's hard to really think in my head. So we do the best we can.
Yeah.
So you might need all those meetings.
And there are some moving targets, right? So things change.
Right,
these things.
sure. Yeah.
Right. So speaking of moving targets, if you look at the sheet you're looking at now, if you look down at the RAM entry for 25-26, you'll notice that is increased slightly over what you were presented the last time. So
Okay.
I did get an updated, and let's be honest, the RAM Board of Ed has not finalized their budget. So I doubt this will be the last change that we get in their budget. Their budget did increase for us by around $2,000. So that's updated in this document.
And I think they said out loud, Eric, that they still have to factor in tuition. The final cost won't be determined until they allow, Bill, I think, had asked about the Columbia students that, you know, are going to be joining too. That might take off a little. So like you said,
Sure. Yeah.
fluid,
Yeah. And,
as they say.
right. And that's not something I have. I just update it when they give me the information. Back on the main budget tab, I did, per your request, put that, if you scroll down a little bit, scroll down under RAM expenses, I just put, you know, this is the date, this is the levy, this is how much we're getting for credit, this is how much in the budget, this is how much in the CIP budget. So you know what's going into that number, that 4,135,000 number.
Thank you. Yep.
That's helpful. Yeah.
Yep. And then subsequent to that, the only other thing I really have in terms of changes that I would like to discuss with the Board of Finance, because at this point, you know, the RAM number, that I can make because that's determined by them, not by me. Everything else at this point, you know, you guys have to agree to it before it goes in the budget. So if you scroll down to the town, keep going down, and then we can go back line by line. Scroll down a little bit more. Hold on, stop. Yep, down just a little bit more. Okay, where it says computer tech support. So we use the town of South Windsor for our IT support. We've had a 3-year contract. We're coming up July 1st is the end of our 3-year contract, and we've been negotiating a new contract. As we've done it, one of the problems we ran into is South Windsor has not been charging us the overhead for FICA and a few other things on their personnel time. And when they went through their audit process, their auditor pointed out that apparently that they're not charging the towns for their employees' time. So they have requested an increase to around $17,000 for that line item. Now, I think that's probably somewhat negotiable. And frankly, I just got this today. So I told their chief information officer I would discuss it with the Board of Finance, you know, and get back to him. Shoot.
Because he's not our employee, right? I mean, is it a contract? We just have a contract with him for a service?
Yes,
So
that's absolutely what
it seems
is.
like it's just knowing employee things and whatever we talk about just seems odd, the reason why, you know. So for all that they
They're
weren't
covering their
doing,
cost is what they're doing, Joanne.
oh, I get it very much, but they should have had that figured out. How many years have we had them that they're just bringing this up now, Eric?
3. So they've been eating
So
that for the last
it
3
never-
years and never
yeah.
really realized it. And it's not just with our town, because they cover 4 other towns too.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
no, I get it though. I get why. It just, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a portion of it.
Yeah.
We're also, I've had some issues with some of the ways the relationship has been between us and them. And I've asked them to make some significant changes in how they provide us service. And that goes into a portion of this cost also.
Hey,
Just-
Eric,
Yep.
it's a tiny, small
Yes.
thing, and maybe I just don't understand it, but I'm looking at the next line down. It says there's a $500 change, but I look at 4,250 versus 4,000. It sounds like a $250 change. Am I just not missing something?
Yeah, because you're only missing, Mark, if you scrolled down over, you
we
would
have,
see the number.
this is the
Gotcha.
estimated cost versus the original budget.
I'm
So,
sorry. Thank you.
Right.
yeah.
But
And
that's
that's just in-
helpful, actually, seeing all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just in because those are the lines we're technically required to be showing per the charter.
Yeah.
That's why it reads this way. Yeah, I recognize it gets a little confusing.
And I hate to be a pick. Can the columns A, B, and C, it doesn't look like they're used. Can they be deleted or shrunk so that we see more of the notes on the right side? Or is that just something we can't do?
So I
I
think we
think
can.
you probably hide them.
Yeah,
Right.
can you just hide them?
We're gonna lose some header information, but it probably isn't really of value to us, so.
And last week or the week before, in one of the meetings, we kind of made the font a little bigger. Is there any way to make this bigger for us now? I'm
Make
just
it
zooming
bigger
in
if
with,
you want.
that's why I'm on my camera off so I can get,
But then
Well-
we lose the data to the right, Joanne.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
so-
okay, no worries. I'll just.
I mean, I
I'll
like it
zoom
bigger
in.
too. My eyes are,
We all
I
discussed
like
this.
big.
We're all in the same boat here. Well, most of us.
How is that? Is that a reasonable compromise?
Yes, it is. Thank
That
you.
looks good.
It looks a
I
lot
mean-
better.
Thank you. And then I
So
can
Eric-
still
Yeah,
zoom
so the
in.
upshot is that they made a proposal to increase their annual cost to about 17K. And that's going to be a negotiation between you and them, and the Board of Selectmen will have to approve that contract.
Yeah, eventually when we get to the actual contract, the Board of Selectmen would approve it. but
Okay.
we need to budget for it now if we're gonna consider that.
Okay, okay.
I don't
Can
know.
I just ask, is that the only tech support in the budget, or are there other? No, I'm not remembering, if there are other, there's probably other computer
Question.
lines in the budget.
There
This
are
is
other
for,
computer lines, but this is the only actual like tech support. And this covers town hall, community center, and public works whenever they need tech support. So those are the three entities this covers. Mostly this covers all the stuff required with maintaining a server, doing the correct backups, interfacing, getting the firewalls set up and functioning, all that stuff. And then day to day, updating computers, dealing with problems that we have in the office.
okay. Do they come out to the office, or is it all through the phone?
No, so they are on site one full day every month and one half day every month. So it's not a ton of hours, and then they're on for emergency support. The other really good thing about, and kind of why South Windsor was chosen in the first place, is they're a big enough town. You have not only the tech that comes out and does day-to-day stuff, but you have somebody that's a server specialist that can deal with much more extensive networking questions. And you have somebody that's a Cisco or an information security guy. So you have kind of the whole chain of command of a big company to tap when you have something other than, hey, my monitor won't come on questions. So.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other
had a question.
questions on this line item?
Not that line item. Something in the town office building though.
Okay, well, how about if we go back up if we could then and just,
Okay.
I think we gotta grind through section by section, right?
Oh,
So,
perfect. Yep, yep.
okay, so Eric was just responding to the request to identify the major changes, so.
Yeah.
think-
I have one procedure question for Eric too. Eric, did we ever have a meeting this year where at the end of the year, we went over transfers? Like Cheryl comes, I know that the transfer language in the charter had changed, within department, you don't need to bring them for approval, but did we ever have one of those meetings where you had to transfer like money around so that we were aware? Because that helps us when it comes to this.
Yeah, we did have that. It was a lot less than in previous years, because per the auditor now, we don't have to square up between departments.
Department,
We only
right.
have to deal with interdepartment transfers when a whole department is over.
So if I look back, I could see where there might have been a big transfer or something. Or maybe we just didn't have any this year.
Yeah, I think that would have been June or August. There was not a whole lot.
Yeah, I
this
mean,
year.
I just don't recall that having
Yeah, I
Cheryl present and going, but sorry, I know I'm off track, but it's budget related. Thank you.
Okay, so if we could, let's just take a look at the revenue. So we already talked, I mean, the current year taxes is calculated from the mill rate tab, so we'll take a look at that at the end. There's a prior tax budget, proposed budget, so you're estimating $200,000 in prior tax collection. That's based on kind of the last 12 months of reporting where we've gotten, so that we've done a little better than expected over the last 12 months. Liens about $6,000, interest taxes, that's based on the stiff account. Again, based on the run rate for the last 12 months, as you can see in the comments column. Telecom personal property tax, you've got 5K. That says need to revisit. Eric, any update on that?
Yeah, we honestly, neither Cheryl nor I can really figure out. We know we get the money, but we don't really understand how it's calculated or why we get what we get. And that's something that's, she and I have both expressed our frustration with trying to figure out where that number comes from. I mean, it's a real number, but.
Okay. As long as we're fairly confident in it. So does anybody have any further questions on that revenue section?
What's up?
Okay,
I do, sorry, Mark, real quick. I know that this year we added 40,000, sorry. We're going line by line. Wait, let me just make sure I'm in the right
Mhm.
spot. I don't want to overstep. Do-do-do-do-do. Um, Oh, wait, it's not in this section, sorry.
okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead, I guess, go on to the next section, which is kind of the miscellaneous revenue. So we've got municipal grants, in aid, Mashantucket Pequot funds, state miscellaneous, municipal stabilization. This is the line that Eric talked about, that if our budget increases too much, we would potentially lose some of that grant. Neglected cemetery grant's been zeroed out. We'll apply for it, but it's not a big chunk of money here. We'll see whether we get it. Disabled programs, flat. Pilot, just for those of you that are familiar with this acronym, that's payment in lieu of taxes. So basically, if the state owns property in your town, that property is not available for property tax assessment. And so the state will make the payment in lieu of taxes to replace that. So state buildings, airports, right of ways, things like that. That usually comes in the payment in lieu of taxes. So that's slightly up. Early voting. So this is a stipend, Eric, to offset the cost of early voting. We got
Yeah,
last-
so previously we did get stipends for that. And there is a proposal right now to fund early voting for towns, because that was another unfunded state mandate when they decided you had to have the polling place open for so long. Unknown whether that's going to get through the budget. So until it is, I don't want to count on revenue from that until we know we're likely to actually get something.
Okay, fair enough. Not a ton of money, but it would be great to cover that. Senior transportation grant. So you're also taking that down to zero. Opportunity to pick that up again?
Yeah, we're working on it. But that's one of those things where it's really hit or miss and it's never funded. There's so many people, it's such a small pool of money that the federal government gives the state that we've gotten a fair bit of money from it in the past, but like right now we're getting nothing for it. So I think it's safer to leave it at zero.
Yeah.
And if we get the grant and we start getting refunded for it, great. We use that to offset the cost of senior transportation.
Okay.
How do we get that grant, Eric? Is that something we have to apply for?
Yep. Yes, we do.
So have we gone through the application process or is it
We
certain time
are
of year?
right. We are right now. We are applying for two things. We're applying for the actually two senior transportation grants. One of them to fund operations and one of them to purchase a replacement for our van. Then that will be an 80-20 grant. So if we get that, the state will reimburse us 80% of the cost of replacing our existing van.
Right, that would be a different line item though, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, neither of those grants, I think realistically have more than a 50% chance of getting it. So I don't like to budget for things that are, kind of moonshots. And even if we did get it, it would probably be the budget after this where we'd have to appropriate our 20%. The last time we applied for and we got the 17 passenger van, I think we applied in 2019. We applied in 2020. We got accepted in 2021. They delivered it in 2024. So these are kind of nebulous things.
Wow, yeah. Hurry up and wait. Okay,
Okay, and then the last line in this section is ECS. This is educational cost sharing funds. So these are funds that reallocated by the state to try to level the available school funding. And we're down about $89,000 on that. And as the note here says, this is from the governor's proposed budget sheet. And this is going to be what it is. We can't really control it. And there's some talk about restoring some of this, I think, isn't there, Eric? I don't really know.
Yeah, so you may have heard the governor pronouncing that he's added a whole lot more money to ECS funding, and they're accelerating the schedule for ECS funding. But the schedule all along has included less funding for the wealthier rural towns. So, you know, every year they basically cut the budget. The governor cuts that line for the small towns, funds the bigger schools more, and then Cost and the other small town organizations go after them and they negotiate it, and hopefully we get back to zero. But that's been zero. That's been roughly 2 million now since 2011, something like that. So we haven't gotten an increase in that in many years.
That's all
Sure.
I was gonna ask, Eric. Thank you, Mark, sorry. That's all I was gonna ask. We generally, it comes back in. So that's a lot, right? I mean, I feel like historically it's come back in and we've gotten what we anticipated. Right, Eric?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the problem is right now the governor's budget still has a, you know, $230 million hole in it.
No,
So
I understand that, and I know it's a long night and a long meeting. I get that. I mean, but just for the sake of it, historically, we have gotten it back, so it's hard to deduct 90 from it, you know, but just
think
thank you. Yeah,
Right now, we kind of have to, unless we know,
Yeah.
have a good sense of it. Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Any other questions on these items?
I don't think mine came up yet. Nope, not yet.
All right, so we'll go into the last revenue section. So we have miscellaneous revenue, $1,500. Rentals, this is we used to rent the soccer fields, etc. So that's not happening and the way it was. So that's reduced quite a bit. Clerk fees, these are primarily for building permits, I believe, Eric, right? So that's kind of
the clerk fees are anytime you buy and sell
building land
property,
use. Okay,
there's
yeah.
a real estate transaction fee and the town
That's
gets
what
paid
it
for
is.
that.
Yeah. So it's not the building, but the transactional fees. Okay.
Correct.
And you had said before that they weren't coming in quite as high as we had expected in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about trying to kind of forecast what the housing market is going to do locally. And there don't seem to be a lot of houses selling right now. So I don't think we're going to see, you know, an appreciable uptick in those fees.
Yeah, and you've got a 12-month run rate there, so that's matches what we're budgeting. Okay. Transfer station, that's fairly predictable. We've got that basically flat. Waste redemption, more, well, we've got up a little bit based on kind of under the new contracts for Casella, Bay State Textile. Okay, so recycling, you've got we've got some pickup there. And then building and land use fees. So last 12 months, again, run rate data, about 75K. So you're budgeting there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming roughly the same transaction. We are trying to hold contractors a little bit more accountable for what they actually report for costs for doing construction. So that may go up a little bit, but it's hard to predict.
Okay. And then I'll also include this interest line, which is, I think, based on the STIF account. So we've done pretty well over the last 12 months. But as you note in the comments, the Fed is likely to reduce interest rates, which will have a direct impact on this. They didn't today. They held them steady, but that's because of some of the uncertainty. But, you know, I think it's a fair bet we'll see some reduction, especially if it looks like we're slipping into any kind of recessionary area. So any questions from the board on those line items? Okay, so we have the RAM education. Eric already addressed this. This is not locked in yet. And even this, it's got to be approved by voters, but of course that will likely happen, always has. And then we have the AES Board of Ed budget, which is, again, it is what was approved by the Board of Ed. So we get into our areas of expense. So we've got, I think we've talked about at least some of these, the town administrator and the administrative assistant amounts here. You can see with slight increases. Talked about the project manager. So this is, you've actually got a contract for that, Eric. So
I don't, but the Board of Selectmen has come to terms with what they're willing to pay for it. And it's acceptable to the individual we're talking to.
Okay. So likely to be.
And frankly, until we're actually starting construction and I need a construction administrator, I've still got 3 or 4 more months before I need to be worrying about having that contract in place.
All right, Joanne?
Yeah, I understand. Thank you for that. I understand that you want to wait, and that's great till it's timely and comes into play. Will it be, is there a length of time assigned to it, or will that all be determined when the job starts and when you need this project manager for?
Yeah, that's
Dependent on
strictly
just-
job-based. And depending on exactly where we come out and how much we sub out and how much we do in-house, I may be able to pay some of that, even though I'm paying it out of this line item right here. That may count, a significant portion of that will probably count towards the town match for the grant. So that will preserve funding that we would have spent out of the multi-use building fund.
I think that was my thought, because if you have this much in your line item and you have multiple projects, so you'll do like a contract by contract with the person. We don't need to know that now, but the line item could be used for multiple projects, is what you're
Yes.
thinking. Okay,
Yes,
so it'll stay in there and use it as needed. Got it. Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Okay, so last year, employee appreciation, mobile phone, straightforward, and mileage. There's the question mark, still considering the employee appreciation line item, Eric? I mean, it's not a lot of
So-
money, but
2 things. One, I've gotten a little bit of a talking to for the auditor on a couple of occasions for self-funding things, when I really shouldn't be. We have no funding to do anything for employees either. So when we do employee picnics, that comes out of my pocket. Anything we do of that nature, I just fund. And I know I'm not supposed to technically be doing it, but I'm not asking for a lot of money for that, but I think that's something the town should consider. But it is a budget increase, so you can consider it or not.
Sure.
I've seen, if you don't mind me speaking, I understand in the budgets, and like I work in a school system, there's usually under the administrator does have an administrative fund where they might, obviously you can't appreciate everyone all the time, but they might have like a year-end picnic or something, like that. Are you thinking of an ongoing thing? I'm not picking at what you do. I think it's great to appreciate employees. Everybody likes that. But I have seen a line item like that. Is that what you do? You do like one major party where you can appreciate everyone? That kind of thing?
So
I mean,
For
I don't need a
instance-
long, sorry, I didn't.
yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's good to do employee barbecues in the summer.
Well, one is good, I mean, I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
No, yep. Thank you. That's all. I have seen it before. It's not uncommon, is what I was sharing with the board. I know I sometimes share other things, but yeah.
okay, other questions or comments on this section? Okay, I guess we'll move down then. Treasurer financial. We have a treasurer's salary staying flat, treasurer clerk wages, slight increase. the assistant treasurer stipend, we have an additional amount there. I think we've had some conversations about that maybe. Conference seminar, very low, contract software maintenance. That's, as you can see the note here, that's to cover the QuickBooks, which used to be in the town office supplies. So I'd agree with that, moving that. And office supplies, that's up quite a bit, Eric, too. So we want to talk about that. And then mileage is mileage. So Joanne, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I'm hoping that at some point tonight we can go through the budget, that I'd like to go into executive session to discuss a few personal money related things. So I don't think it's appropriate to talk about it in person, you know, in a meeting like this. I know Eric redirected me. I'll keep it brief. There's been a lot of things done and you know, not just here, on a few things. So it's an appropriate time to just ask if we can have an executive session somewhere to discuss a few things that have come up. You know, a brief thing to notify the board of some findings or information, not findings, just information, and see how
So
the board wants to go forward.
if we're okay with that, let's kind of hold that off then. If it's not
Yes.
specifically.
Yep. So that's why I won't make any
Let's-
remarks on some of these. I'll hold it off.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions on this, this section? Okay, I guess we'll go down to the town clerk area. So we have a town clerk salary supplemental is gone because, as we know, the supplement, just as I guess for a little bit of background for those of you who are newer to the board, the town clerk had asked for an increase. We were a little concerned about just increasing the town clerk's salary out of hand, but we decided the town clerk was worth some extra money due to her experience. So we put that into a supplemental line item. And the reason we did that was to avoid setting too much of a precedent should the town clerk leave or retire, which has now happened. We were to hire somebody who was more of an entry level, we would not expect to pay them at the same level. So that was why that supplemental line was there, and it's now zeroed out. The assistant town clerk salary basically flat, not much change there. Conference, training, equipment maintenance, these are all kind of small line items, office supplies, land records, films, mapping, memberships, statistics. So a lot of this stuff is basically flat. You see a lot of zeros for the change. So pretty straightforward. The line on the town clerk salaries, we need to figure this one out. I guess we need to find a town clerk would be what's going to happen there. I don't know, Eric, if you have any comments on that.
Sure. I mean, ultimately, the Board of Selectmen has to make a decision whether they want to appoint an official town clerk or not. If they don't, then in November, there will be elections for that position. So it's up to them whether how they want to do it. And that's not my take on it. That's the town's attorney's take on it.
Yeah. Okay. Joanne?
Yeah, because I feel like this is a generic question. It's not, I was kind of wondering the same thing because I know they've mentioned in their Board of Selectmen meetings that we all know the person in the position has retired. And so now we have this line still here with a lot of attachments to it. So yeah, my follow-up was going to be if they had made a decision, maybe I better wrap it around in the other discussion too. I'll save it because it's going to affect the amount in this line because I know that they were going to have someone be a consultant in that position and help along any employees in the office. So I'm thinking this line, you know, but Eric, sorry, I'm thinking out loud and processing. I guess we need to decide what it needs to be at for the coming year. And it's until the BOS decides what they're going to do, I guess we won't know. And I thank you. Sorry, processed it out loud, but it is attached to a lot of things like healthcare and, you know, big money items. So, yeah.
Sure.
So
and
we kind of have to figure out when a new person would come online.
Right.
and how much of the year is left to compensate that person, but then have a different line for the consultant at that salary rate. Is that kind of what you're,
I think
Yeah.
you'd have to, I don't think I'd want to add another account for another line item for a consultant. I think you just probably pay it out of that salary. I
And
think,
has that
that
been,
would
yeah,
be kosher, be okay.
yeah, good follow-up. Is that what's happening, Eric? Because I mean, for that, I mean, not talking about someone's personal, that's been out loud and said, so. As far as retiring, I would imagine the consultant or job being performed is getting paid out of that line. Or we're in this year's budget. For next year, you just don't know from July on, I guess.
I don't honestly even know what we're doing now. I
Okay.
mean, because that's not something I have any direct input into.
Right.
And I don't think, to my knowledge, the board hasn't made any specific decisions on that.
Right.
So
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
I mean, so basically what we've got is the current salary rate, or kind of an estimated, but at a 3% increase. So, seems reasonable, but again, they may be able to, if they hire somebody, they may be able to negotiate a lower salary.
And Mark, that was my idea, seemingly that might be somewhere that could be trimmed a little based
Yeah.
on what seems to be going to happen. We can kind of project that, maybe not a lot, but if we're looking to save the taxpayers, and then whatever they decide, we'll know moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's risky to trim it without knowing what's going to happen. I mean, it'd be a windfall if we budgeted at, 59K and we come in at 54, but I think it's I'd rather budget a few K high personally.
No, I hear you. And I'm looking at the history of last year, we had the 300,000 surplus. So hopefully that we have a few areas like that, like the ECS funding could be a potential extra 89,000 in the budget. And so I know we're at the beginning. I hear you though.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Eric.
So the one thing I would say is that that line item is for the town clerk's salary, not the assistant town clerk's salary, because that's
Right.
a union position. But
Right.
the town clerk's salary, that is solely at the jurisdiction of the Board of Finance. The Board of Selectmen does not get to weigh in on that. They get to appoint a town clerk. You, as the Board of Finance, get to determine their salary.
That's right. Of course, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the salary will be what it is on an
well, it's
annualized.
gonna, I was
Well,
gonna
we
say,
did
it'll
that.
depend on it'll
Right.
depend on the experience of the person, I would think.
Well, no, I don't think so, actually. That's the point Eric's making. The Board of Finance sets the town clerk's salary.
Right. So we
for-
have the right. It
So
was
if,
yeah.
if we set this at $40,000, then that's the salary. If we set
Oh,
it at
is that true?
$80,000, that's the salary.
That's not happened, but that will be discussed. So, I thought, and we had a lot of discussion, thoughtful discussion and a lot of background and everything because of the person that had been in it. And we
Yeah,
came
yeah.
up with this thing with the extra supplemental because this person that we have that just retired was so experienced and had been there so long. And then
Right.
we took a lot of input and raised the regular salary too, just a couple years ago. So,
2%. Yeah, it wasn't much. Yeah.
right, but if I think we went 6% at that time or something. I mean, she had good arguments, but I'm saying if we set this at a certain thing, you're saying that's it. They have to, I mean, I've seen other things happen. So,
When someone is appointed as town clerk or is elected as town clerk, that will be their salary. If the Board of Selectmen hires a consultant to the town to help provide support for people doing the function, then I think that would not apply. The
Mhm.
consultant would be whatever rate the Board of Selectmen negotiates. So that's a separate thing. But the town clerk is an elected position, and
Right.
per the charter, the Board of Finance sets that salary. So what we're doing now is we're going to set the salary for anyone who is either appointed or elected the town clerk for next year.
then I don't feel comfortable thinking we don't know that we're going to get someone that's up to the caliber. of the person we had. And I'm not trying to take anything away. We have no idea if they're going to hire full-time, unless there's charter and stipulations. So I think that's an area we should maybe talk about, because
Well,
what if we
talk about
agree.
it now because we got to make a decision. I guess this would be kind of what I was trying to say earlier. If somebody wants to make a motion to change any of these numbers while we're in this section, it's probably the time.
Right, but I feel, having put a lot of time and effort, missed a meeting last week and everything, if I want to make some changes based on some data I get next week, I may
Yeah.
come back to you all and say it, but
Oh, yeah, we can always do that. Of course, that's
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I
until
don't
we-
want to just be
we vote
stuck
the final
tonight.
budget, everything's in flux.
Yeah.
But what I think we should do is, if anybody has anything they definitely want to address, now is
Yeah.
the time to make the change and to highlight that. Doesn't mean we can't change it next week or the week
Right.
after or the week after.
Thank you. I don't want to be the only one talking to this. Does everyone feel they want to keep it at the high level of the prior person, or should we?
Well, remember, we took out the $6,000 supplement, so it's not quite at the level that Carol was making. So Carol would have made that 59, we're 57,750 plus 6,000, so she would have made roughly 63,000.
And
So
we raised her to that level based on all of her knowledge, all the little
Yeah.
things that Eric had sent. I'm not trying to be a cheapskate or anything. I understand it's like a 34-hour week. I think if Eric wants to back up the position I'm just saying, should we think about like maybe 50,000? I'm not looking to go way down because we just don't know who we're gonna get. I hope, unless everyone's totally against it and they're like, Joanne, just leave it, then I'll back off.
yeah, it's impossible to know who we're going to get. It's like we basically are going to be paying them for doing the job.
Yep,
And
and I don't
expect-
mind. I said my piece. If everyone is fine with it, then I'll leave it.
I mean, my thought is, is that a competitive number too, right? Or I mean, in terms of competitive, you know what I mean? Surrounding towns and whatnot.
So
Is that the prevailing kind of number?
So we looked at this many times in the past too, and based on the size of the town and everything, that's how we basically came up with this number. I
Right.
mean, obviously we had a number because of Carol's, I shouldn't say that, because of the person's tenure,
Yeah.
we raised it and we added
Yes.
that's, I guess in my mind, Joanne, I think the number is a nice stable number because I think we'd rather hire someone that's competent and maybe already trained and, at being a clerk rather than try and hire someone that has no training and have to bring them up to speed over the years just to save some money. I would rather hire someone that knows what they're doing.
That's a good point.
And
Yeah.
at a rate that is, for the size
Competitive.
town we are. And I think the rate that we have in there is pretty close to what, for a small town, with all the data that we were handed over the last couple of years, it's right in there, minus the $6,000. You know what I'm saying? So I'd hate to be short of being able to hire a good candidate because we put a budget in there today, not knowing who's going to apply for this job or.
Yeah, if we have to stay with that and we could never move that line, and then any line the BOF said they need to stay with it, not different. I hear you, Bill, because we want a good person. That's a very important position. I just thought if we were in flux, could we lower it this year and then come back to it if we got a good candidate? But if we're married to that number and we could never change it, I totally understand.
But we can't
What
Can I
about-
just say,
can't change it
can I
mid-year.
just say,
Go ahead.
can I
Liz.
just say, this is an elected position. This is not someone that we get to select. This person's gonna have to run for the office. Right?
Good
Hopefully
point.
in November, yes.
But they might be
Yes.
appointed for now. Someone might be appointed.
Right.
So I guess there's a increase in there also, a 3% increase. What if we just eliminated the $1,732 increase and went back to
Last year's salary.
last year's number?
Yeah.
The
I
57, 50, yeah.
That's a great.
That's actually a
that's
very
good
good idea.
compromise. Yes.
I think
I
I would
think that's
make a motion to go back to last year's salary.
So give me a
for the-
number, Bill.
Well, the number is
motion to-
59,482 minus 1732.50.
It's right there,
So,
right?
I
Is
don't
it
have my
next door?
calculator in front
I
of
gotta
me.
look at it.
57,750.
50.
57,750. Thank you. There it is. So I would
Yep.
make the motion that we keep the budget at 57,750 for the town clerk's position.
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. We will put that in there as it stands. And again, there's nothing saying we cannot change this in the next few weeks if for some reason we get a good information that we should, so.
Good point. Sounds good.
It's the 19th, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
It's been a week, okay. Okay. Anything else on this section that anybody wants to address? Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's move on to tax collector. So we have some increase in the tax collector salary. So we have a note here, union memorandum of agreement, MOA, builds in increases upon testing completion. So we're anticipating, or else that has happened. So that's the proposed budget. Eric, is that anticipated or is that person at that?
So they are not at that currently. That's depending on completion of their testing requirements. So what we did is essentially I hired somebody that had not had any tax collector training whatsoever. And I conditioned her compensation on full completion of the state mandated training.
Yeah, okay. Does anybody have any further questions for Eric on this? And just to point out, the other line items are mostly kind of plus minus, so mostly flat.
Just a quick follow-up, Mark,
Yep.
to Eric. Totally want to give her kudos. I know that she's brought in a lot of the, all of them really, but I mean, she's brought in a lot of the funds and has collected a lot of the back taxes. So without having that experience, she's doing a great job. Just wondering, Eric, at some point, can you please put the MOA in the budget stuff just so that we can see it and see the rates for the different things? Unless it's in there already, I apologize.
I thought it was, but I can certainly check on that.
Yeah, no rush like tonight, just in the past, just so that we see how that, thank you, that's all.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess hearing none, let's move on to the assessor section. So we have, again, the 3.8% increase on the assessor and the assistants, assessor salaries, so some minor changes. We have a contract, the software cost increase in this QDS and Vision software. I don't know if any of you have ever looked at that online, but it helps manage the assessments, and you can look up your own property or any property that is in there, frankly, to understand the assessment cards and see what the breakout is. Mileage flat, reduction in subscriptions. So any questions on this one or suggested changes or?
Just quick one going by, so we pay that software amount every year? Clearly, I mean, you have it.
Correct.
It's that expensive every year. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if nobody else has any other questions or input, we'll move on to registrars. So these are the registrars of voters. They receive I guess, a salary. It's gone up quite a bit in the last couple of years, primarily because of the early voting, I believe. They're having to work a lot more to manage that. Most of the other stuff is flat within a couple $100, training, conferences, et cetera. Anybody have any questions on that for Eric?
Sorry, I know, but my questions are quick and I'll put it up in the memory bank. So the registrars are present all the time? Or there's hours I could look up online, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, they're not in there, the whole time the town hall office is
I didn't
open.
think so.
They work their own hours. you know, and I submitted to you there in that list of stuff is there, because again, registrars do not work for me in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
They're elected officials, so I just simply pass their budget on to you. So, but their supporting documentation was in with all the other stuff.
So I didn't look at that one too close, but I will. So we can move on for now. And think if unless anybody else has questions.
Anybody else, any questions or comments? Okay, moving down to elections. So the election salaries, again, we've got it's basically sitting flat. Says see explanation from Wally and Linda. So that's kind of the breakout. I'm surprised there isn't a little bit of a higher cost, but I guess we had to do some of the early voting last year, so it's probably why it's in there. We must have anticipated it to some degree.
So the election salaries are a separate line item from the registrars, or
Yes,
kind of-
and so I can kind of explain that a little bit. If you walked into the building on election day, you would see at any given time probably 7 or 8 people working. And everybody's got their own pay scale based on what they do. But the state mandates how many and what of each employee have to be present, both during early elections as well as during you know, the regular elections. So those are just, you know, that pays for the moderator, that pays for the little polling, the guy who sits there and watches you put your ballot in the little box. That's what all that salary comes out of.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move down to the building department. Sorry. Okay, so we can look at the numbers. We already had a presentation by Jay over the most of the, I guess, variable costs. We have a reduction in the zoning agent salary, noting that the offer letter is changing ZEO per offer letter, $31 an hour at 19 hours weekly. Town planner, we jumped up. The cost of the planner is around $48K a year, have been offsetting with POCD implementation fund.
Yeah, so in the past, we had a permanent fund called the POCD Implementation Fund.
Right.
Because what had happened going back in previous budget years, and it occurred to me when I was the chair of PZC, when it came time to do the plan of conservation and development, we went to the board and said, okay, now we need 60 grand or 70 grand to do the plan. And the board's like, well, you know, we don't want to pay for that. So we got the board to put the money in every year over that 10 years. So it wasn't a big shock at the end. So instead of just hiring a consultant to do the POCD, the Board of Selectmen made a decision to just hire an actual part-time town planner. And we hired a firm called Tai Chi. And we use a guy named John Guskowski as our chief planner. And then, you know, he is then responsible for, as part of his role as the town planner, for doing the plan of conservation and development and the affordable housing plan, and all the other state mandated plans that towns have to produce.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, okay. Questions for Eric on this?
Yeah, do we have to accept that jump? Can we? I mean, it's a 33% increase. I don't know how people feel about that.
Pretty high increase.
Well,
Yeah, I
Yeah, I'll follow up both of you when you talk to. I had a thought. Yeah.
I agree. I
it's
think that's-
not actually an increase. We're not paying him more than we were paying him. We're just paying him all out of this line item, as opposed to supplementing from the POCD implementation fund to pay him. If that makes sense.
So we were paying him this amount basically before, but
Correct.
part of it coming from the fund.
Correct. We were only, because we had money in the POCD implementation fund, we paid his salary out of both locations, so it wasn't as big a hit to the public. But since we've kind of run through that money, now it all comes out of the town planner line item.
That was my question. Okay, so that's basically exhausted at this point.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Thank you.
And my
So what,
question,
what,
oh, go ahead,
oh,
Megan.
I was gonna say, so what was his combination salary? So it says 23, 24. It was 44,000. What were we paying him out of the other budget?
Mm.
Or, you know what I mean?
Um,
What was the combo payment before? Now we're saying
he's-
it'll be 48,000.
Yeah, he's basically running his cost for us the last 3 years. His standard town contract is essentially 4,000 a month. So that's what we're paying.
4,000 a
Eric,
month.
was he- Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Does he still work? From what I remember, he works in a variety of towns, right? Am I wrong with that? He's not just an Andover person. I mean, I know he's very knowledgeable. I've seen him in meetings and all those kind of things when you need him in land use things or planning things, and very well spoken, does a good job. But I'm kind of the same thing too. Has he done, like, I'm sure you like having him there and it's good for the town, but has he done the majority of his planning already? Because the affordable housing plan, the different things, or is this an ongoing process? I guess kind of what Liz was saying. Is this something we definitely need this year, this big of an amount?
I mean, you either have a town planner or you don't. I think he's not going to, you're not gonna go back to him and say, oh, we only want to hire you for $20,000 a year. I think you either agree to have a town planner or you don't. The town in the past ran without a town planner.
How many years has he been? Has it been about 3 or 4 years now?
Yeah,
Or-
he's been the town planner now for just over 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember having the discussion,
mm, Me
Board
too.
of Finance and elsewhere about how to handle this, because it's a fair amount of burden, right? The planning, zoning and development and the plan of conservation and the housing plan is really an issue too, right? So.
Right. And I guess my follow-up thought is in looking in this department in general, I know all of the town, departments are, busy enough or whatever for a small town that we are. This is just probably one of the less busy departments right now, as the proof and the building permits and just the state of nobody's building, nobody's moving, the economy and the rates, all because of that. So it seems like we're putting a lot of money in this department, and I know we have to have one. So I don't know where we're going with that, but and I'll look into this a little bit more because I've focused on other places, but I know we share the building inspector and we have to have a zoning agent. We have to have all these things. I get it. It just seems like for a slow moving department right now, it's a high expenditure is what I'm trying to say. But
Mhm.
I'll do more research and circle back to it.
Yeah, I mean, building may be down, but things still happen every week. Small things, small people build decks. I just had solar installed, so the inspector will be out at my house next week probably.
No, I get that.
Got
I
that.
love building. It's just very, very slow. I would just happen to be at the town hall and went in there and had a discussion with them when I was there last week. Yeah, you're right. It could pick up. Spring's coming. You never know. I'm all set.
Other questions or comments? Okay, we're going down to the library. So we've got a 2.5% increase on the payroll. This assumes a 3% increase for Board of Selectmen. Library operations basically flat. Any questions or comments on the library? Okay, I guess we'll go to civil preparedness. I always get a kick out of this one. We have a $3,000 budget through $3,200, so slight increase in our civil preparedness salary. Comment here, this is offset with a grant from the Dems. So is this the Democratic Party?
No, Department of Emergency Management Services.
Oh.
I'm going to capitalize this. Actually, I'm going to write it out.
And remind me, oh, well, let me wait. I was gonna say, what's the CERT vehicle? Is there money in that line item? What's the CERT vehicle? I know you told me that one, Eric.
So we in Marlboro help pay the maintenance costs for the vehicle that the CERT team, because we have kind of a combined team with the towns of Hebron and Marlboro.
It's Community Emergency Response Team, right? That's what the
Oh,
CERT.
right, okay.
Correct. And Hebron just used a bunch of their ARPA funds and bought them a brand new, vehicle. So we didn't pay any for the cost of the vehicle. Hebron dropped around 60 grand to outfit the new vehicle because we were using a cast off ambulance for a long time. So this just pays for any damage or repairs or anything we need for the vehicle itself.
And Eric, some of this is state mandated positions, right, or activities? Or no?
Well, so there's kind of two things there. In terms of the salary line item, we are technically as a town required to have an emergency management director and an EMC. So technically this pays for the emergency management coordinator. And that's what that line item does. And by charter, essentially, either first selectman or myself ends up being the emergency management director. So that falls on me. So I don't get paid for that portion. But the person that's the kind of the number two for that does get paid.
Anybody have any further questions for Eric on this? Comments?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. The next section is the community center. So we have a slight decrease in the proposed wages for the director based on the current contract and then extrapolated full-time. Okay. So we've
Well,
added
that shouldn't say extrapolated to full-time anymore because the Board of Selectmen decided not to do that. So
okay,
you can just
based on
say
contract
that
period.
current contract.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again. Say that again? What did you just change? I'm sorry.
So all we did was change the verbiage. So I had originally proposed to the Board of Selectmen a higher salary for that position to change it to a 34-hour week position. The Board of Selectmen declined to do that. So therefore, her salary is basically what's in her contract.
Okay. Can you just Mark, scroll up? I just wanted to see the note again.
I changed
Based
it.
on contract.
So yeah. So what it said before was based on extrapolation to full time. That's when Eric had a larger number. So it should have been changed when it was reduced to this contract number. So, so erroneous, I guess, would be the way to think about it. And then we've got an increase in the community center assistant wages. The note here is currently $20 an hour, assuming 10 hours per week. So that's just a multiplier there.
I thought that's what she was at before.
It is.
Oh, okay.
We probably just
Okay,
did
then.
for
She
a full
probably
year
just came
hours.
on board, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything else is, there's some reductions, some increase. What is the software cover? My senior center software.
Yeah,
know,
that's still
There's niche
pending
software, yeah.
review by the board. And that is also something we're trying to pick up the cost of that through one of the transportation grants. No, doesn't seem like we're gonna be able to do it, but we're trying to pay for that elsewhere, if we can.
Joanne, you had your hand up?
I was thinking, should we highlight that cell as a thing? Because I know the Board of Selectmen have not approved that at all yet. And there's thought of it, just waiting a while, letting things run. I know this seems
Software
like,
maintenance here?
yes,
This cell?
it was a definite no. It hadn't been approved at all yet.
Right.
Correct.
And I understand like why, yeah. So I'm hoping at the end of this meeting, we pick some kind of color to designate things to go back to. I'm good with colors on my spreadsheets too, just to not forget things. I mean, it's small things, but we have to be really reticent, or if that's the word, just go with what we've heard in meetings of what they've said. Maybe it'll come down the pike, but I know it's a no so far.
Right, so should we
Or do you want
eliminate
it?
that? Because the Board of Selectmen said they're not ready. They didn't approve that. Should we
Correct.
move that to 0?
Well, if someone
my
wants to make a motion, I'm fine to, it really hasn't been approved yet. I don't think it should be in the budget when it hasn't been.
Well, but
Because
if there's a chance they will approve it, we don't want to have the budget shorted, so it's a little bit of a, how do you pick your poison? I mean, it's $1,800, we'll cover it somewhere, but.
I get it. I like to just stay steady with what I hear in meetings, and I'm just such a literal person, so we're adding in all these things in case, and then the taxpayers are paying for them before they need to. It's just my take on it.
Well,
I don't mind when
true.
things get approved and things like that.
Mhm.
And
Maybe,
can't we basically make a decision that we agree that it's not a time to add this piece of technology and
Well, yeah, I mean, we can
don't-
certainly zero it, and I think we can make a motion to zero. It's not really up to us to decide how the money gets spent. Ultimately, that'll be up to the Board of Selectmen, working with Eric. But, we can certainly zero this line item. And if they decide they want it, we can try to find it out of somewhere else.
right, so let me ask Eric a follow-up question. And maybe it was the building maintenance fund, but I know that there was that soundproofing and acoustic work done in both the community room at the town hall and the community center, which was quite a bit. Did you find that in the budget somewhere? We hadn't budgeted that last year, right?
Yeah, that was taken straight out of the building maintenance fund.
Okay. Okay,
And does anybody want to make a motion here or?
yeah, I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion to remove this because I don't feel comfortable with what I heard in the other meetings.
And I'm
I'll
happy to,
second
that.
I'm sorry, Kim, did you second it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just putting it out there, it's not gonna be a bad thing when it does come on board, but I just wanna kind of stick with the things that were approved already, so that's my discussion.
I don't know if you guys saw, there's a chat message.
Yeah, I guess Tess, if you want to go ahead and unmute, if you can make it brief, we'll listen to what you have to say there.
Yeah, I just want to know if the community and senior center raises the funds to put the software in, would that be acceptable to the Board of Finance?
That's up to the Board of Selectmen, really. That's really an executive decision. So, our role as the Board of Finance is just to establish the budget and set kind of spending policy and limits. So the specific activities that take place within the department are really controlled by the department heads, Eric, and the Board of Selectmen. So for us, it would be neutral, I would say.
Okay, so unfortunately, with all the programs, it has more to do with all the programs involved. It has to do with drivers, it has to do with scheduling, it has to do with a whole lot of other things other than just programs. And so I just want the Board of Finance to understand that
Okay.
there's more involved with just programs. So
Got it.
if the Community and Senior Center has the ability to raise funds through fundraising, would they be more inclined to accept that?
Well, I think the Board of Selectmen certainly would, but it's really their decision, not ours, so.
Right. This is nothing personal. I'm sure, like I said, it's a good program. I'm just going by what I've heard the Board of Selectmen say already, Tess. This has nothing to do with,
Yeah.
right, that kind. I just like to be very literal and see things
so-
represented on the spreadsheet the way I heard them.
Yeah, so
thank
the premise here is that the Board of Selectmen hasn't approved the expenditure, so we don't feel like necessarily
to-
we should budget for it.
Correct.
Understood. Thank you.
Any further discussion from the Board of Finance on this item? Okay, I guess all those in favor of the motion to reduce it to 0, say aye.
Aye.
I,
I'll vote aye also. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Bill's opposed. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. We'll zero that out on this one right here. Again, not saying we can't make a change if we get more information or change of heart before we've approved our final budget. Okay,
So
just looking.
you understand you took out every bit of software that that facility pays for. So
I don't think
no
that's what they
Adobe,
understand.
no Canva, no nothing. You want her to have a computer, an email, and that's it.
well, Eric, you didn't tell us that, and we're going on thank you for telling us after our whole discussion is over.
Right,
Well,
where's the line level? Where's the line level
that-
detail?
what does that take us, Eric? I mean, maybe, do we have enough information to make a reasonable, what is it that, do we know what the Board of Selectmen is in favor of or not in favor of?
Well, what did we take off, Eric? What expenses did we take off? Of course, we want her to have computer programs, and I work at a school system that has software and computer things, so I don't know what they pay every year. What is the yearly? I thought this was the line for the additional program that has been discussed.
So
So-
if we
And
don't have
Tess
that
spoke to that
detail,
as well, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
Eric,
send the
do you have
detail.
that detail?
You know what? I will get back to you on that. I
Okay.
can't tell you exactly every piece of software that office
No,
uses.
we don't
off the
expect
top
you
of my
to,
head.
so we admit that we could have been wrong and took this as just the one that's been discussed, so thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's just information. We get that you don't have everything at your fingertips, thank you.
Okay, so the board can leave it at 0. We could also make a motion and change it back to where it was,
Of course.
pending more information.
Right.
I would say at a minimum, fund the $120 annual subscription for Canva. Because we can probably cover that department's Office 365 out of the town software budget, if you want to do that.
That's $120, Eric?
Canva's 120 annual.
I say we circle back because I get it, and thank you for bringing that to our attention with what we thought we were doing, but I have a feel, should we just wait, before we make 10 motions on one line? I mean, we can always put it back in.
All right,
If
let's
he,
just
if
remember
he
to
comes
come
up with
back.
something,
yeah.
something next week rather than back. Right now, we've taken it out and thinking what we thought, and now we'll get more information, maybe put something back in.
Okay. All right, well, if everyone's okay with that, we will continue to look here. Most of the other stuff is reductions kind of based on current expectations. We reduced the electricity budget based on the usage we've seen so far, so that's good. A couple other things here, internet cable, voice. Adding a few things, line items here, kitchen supplies, conference seminars, postage. printing. So a few things that we probably did not anticipate in the original senior center budget or community center budget. Anybody have any questions from those?
Well, only because Eric brought it up too, so it brought a good point. I would imagine that the community center is included and gets to use things that the town have. I
Why
mean,
would you imagine that?
well, you're opening my eyes. I'm learning all the time. Listen, my brain has to keep moving and working, so this is good. Because ours town is a tiny town, like I love to call it, and it's right next door to the town hall. And I just maybe thought that everything could be connected. So I noticed that there's a telephone thing here that will come up in the town office building too. No, so you're saying that it's possible that they can't access whatever software where the town hall has? We can't add her on as a user?
Well, they usually pay per license per
Right,
individual user.
exactly. Pay for a license for.
Well, but does it really matter whether you add it in the department that's using it or in the town hall department?
No, and I'm not gonna nitpick that much, but I'm just hoping that it can be used that way, or I'm learning, so that I won't bring up something in a meeting that shouldn't have been brought up. So I guess I just assumed it was a town person, and we'll move on. Not a question I need to have answered right now, but thanks.
Any other questions on this section?
Can I just ask about the computer repair service for $2,500? It says add one additional computer. Is that the computer for the public or is that for the offices? I'm just curious, that's all.
So they have asked for two computers, basically, one for the assistant, and one public facing computer for any senior or person who wants to come in and use one and access one in the facility. It
Okay,
hasn't,
I think that's
no
great.
decision has been made whether either one of those, that's still up for negotiation, but if we haven't funded it, it doesn't matter.
Okay, no, I think there should be extra computers. Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Any further questions, comments? All right, Tess, I'm gonna unmute you a little bit more time, but we need to move on. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I just want to, if you have, I can expand on that computer situation. Would you like to know more information?
Yes.
So what we have seen is just recently we had a senior come in and wanting to renew her driver's license. She does not have the ability to do that on her own. And so what we did was I walked her through the whole process, walked her through the Department of Motor Vehicle, and she renewed her license at the center. And so we're finding that a lot of seniors do not have the capability to do that on their own. And so we would like a computer that would have public access that we could walk through that process and other processes through the senior center for those clients. Also, with one computer, with a laptop at the senior center, we are not able to access the computer at the same time. So the assistant and I both have to share one computer at the same time. And so if we had another computer, she could be working on certain things like newsletters, things like that, where I would be able to access the computer at the same time. If we had 3 different computers, that would be ideal. If we had 2 computers, we would work with what we have. So
I just
Okay.
want to say, Tess, I think it's a great idea. I mean, I'm in support of that. You need that for what you're trying to
Right.
do.
Yeah,
But
that's
a
great.
thought popped into my head. I know that they recycle a lot of things at the school or different, I don't know if we've looked into possibly, I know where I work, they upgrade things all the time. And I feel like systems are very new. So I'm just wondering if, I'm not saying we can't do this with budgeting. I'm not trying to nitpick here. I think it's very important. We have a new center. But sometimes some places do upgrade so often that there might be something that the school or the library media specialist or someone is upgrading and might have one to share. I don't know. I know you do a lot of, programming there with the school, so I don't
I-
know if it's ever come up. It's just a thought.
I'm totally all for nitpicking. So please, Joanne, please understand that if we have a computer that can be updated, that our assistant can use to utilize during that time, and even if we can use that same computer for our seniors, that we can train them. We can
Oh, it's fabulous. You
yeah.
need it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what the center's all there for.
Sure.
That's
And
not
I
an
think
area we're trying to, yeah.
I believe my computer itself is a laptop, and that is
Yeah.
a used computer as well. So
Mhm.
what I'm using currently is not up to date, but it is a used computer. I'm fully happy with what I have, but I think that an additional computer or two computers, even in an Air, I'm not sure what it's called, an iPad might be sufficient as well.
No, thank you.
Right. Thanks, Tess.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other comments or thought, changes that people want to make to this section? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll move on. Town office building. Okay, we already talked about the tech support line. This has not been updated to the new proposal request from the, is it South Windsor, Eric?
Correct.
So most of the other items are, it's kind of a net reduction. We've got a little more on furnace maintenance, seeking a service contract. Corporate HVAC, so change wording to HVAC maintenance. So, okay. So instead of furnace, it would be actually heating, ventilation, air conditioning, HVAC. So you're talking about changing the line item in the budget or the account name?
Correct.
Okay, just to clarify that. Website fees going up quite a bit. So that's our current bill, okay. Copier rental, new contract slightly lower, but now includes click charges and community center. So we put a copier in the community center, so that's driving that up, is that?
No, we didn't end up putting a copier in the community center because I didn't want to pay the extra fee for it. But because it's far more efficient to print in the town hall than on the small copier that Tess has, we're running, our quick charges are increasing. Not the rate of the quick charges, but the amount we're printing.
So basically, we're using it more heavily and we're paying usage fees.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Alarm monitoring flat, reduction in the talent dispatch. Okay, that's good. Reduction per assessment. So electricity actually going up here based on heat calculations and usage, but with limited data for the heating season. Okay. Propane, we're using an estimate. You feel like that's okay. Right? All that. Anybody have any specific questions on the town office building accounts? Yeah, Joanne?
Yeah, I know we talked about the computer tech support, and then we have the software maintenance fee. And then at the bottom, we had one of the last lines was another technical computer thing. Can you scroll down a little bit, Mark, with my eyes? So this
Computer
repair
service.
and service. So we do split things up, Eric?
So that is the cost. So on average, throughout the entire town hall, not including the server, which would be a capital expense if that needed replacing, we plan on replacing between 2 and 3 PCs a year, depending on what we need to do.
So there
Um,
we go. 2 and 3 a year in our town hall, a PC. Like your desktop thing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a desktop and I have a laptop.
Oh, I do too, but it hasn't been replaced for years. So every year we count on doing 2 or 3 a year. Okay.
How
Yes,
many
we do.
PCs do we have in the town hall
Right.
here?
Probably every office, right, has 1 or 2, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm just thinking from walking through the building.
I can't tell you on off the top of my head. I mean, you know, we're typically running about a 5-year replacement schedule for PCs, something in that range.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's really the number. So you fix them on fail basically, or as it become obsolete
So yes,
or something?
yes, correct.
It does seem high to me for what it is, but I'm not, I'm glad we pointed it out, and that's surprising to me that they would have to be if we have a contract of a service person, and some people are only part-time, 19 hours a week, and others, I think we have 1 full-time person. It seems like a high turnover, but it's not a big number, so I'll just thank you for the explanation.
It's a low number, and I can just tell you from my work experience, Joanne, I mean, at least
Yeah.
in the company I just retired from,
Right.
yeah, I mean, 3 to 5 years is, if you look at the computer software that takes more and more RAM, but more and more, memory. I mean, it changes fast. I mean, a computer is
Yeah.
outdated, and 3 to 5 years, a computer is outdated.
Oh, understood. I thought he said he changes 3 desktops every year.
Well, as I'm saying, so it's in a 5-year rotation. So you take
Right,
the
if you
total
have
number.
that many, yeah, right. Oh, yeah,
So
you're
on a
right.
5-year rotation, it doesn't sound excessive, is what I'm trying to say.
No.
Okay.
I was going on the changing 3 every year with people that might work 20 hours a week, or something. I was looking at a different way. Your way, I understand. Thank you.
So
Maybe
I
one
think
of those could be used this is a community center.
That's what I was thinking. That's bad. You know
Yes.
me, like I was like, hey, we might be changing one out. If we change them out if we do 3 a year, boom, problem solved. Let's
Yeah.
take one of the older,
Worth
no
trying.
offense, but the seniors, they don't mind. Like they'd be on there, that would be fine. Tess just said thank you. Yeah, if they're there, don't go to AES for that rotation, go right to the town hall. Oh,
depending on why they're getting changed out, of course. So I think that the biggest question for us in this section is going to be, what do we do about this computer tech support? Maybe we don't go to $17,000 for the proposed budget, but I think we ought to put a more realistic number in there. If indeed, as it sounds.
17, I thought it says 12,000. Wait, what's the 17,000?
Well, this has not been increased per their new proposal. So the new proposal,
that's
Eric,
right.
didn't you say the new proposal is roughly 17 grand?
Yeah, their proposal was basically 17,281.
Yeah, so maybe
What would we do if we didn't agree to that number? I'm kind of feeling like, what are we going to do if we don't approve the 17 that they want? Does that mean we have to go out and find someone new to partner with to get the computer support?
I mean, honestly, I would probably end up negotiating with them and go back to 2 half-days a year or 2 half-days a month.
A month.
Instead of 1 full day and 1 half day, which
Okay.
we changed because we just flat out didn't have enough time to get stuff done in a timely manner.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So, I mean, if we really can't budget for it, then we'll work out something with them to address that. But
Yeah, we're not going to get tech support for much
Cheaper than that.
less than that.
Mhm.
Yeah, not when you have things like Eric mentioned, the server specialist. I mean, it's not something you get desktop support. You got server specialists. You probably have hardware now. So it's.
So I guess my question is should that be increased to the 17, or do we leave it until Eric, we get more information on the negotiation, or, I mean, you're comfortable leaving it to 12,214 or?
No, I'm not. I'm requesting you set it to 17, but you're the Board of
Oh.
Finance, so it's your decision to make, not my decision. You know,
Yeah, I
once
mean,
we're at this point of the budget, those decisions are yours, not, you know. So,
Yeah,
What if we met? I was gonna say, what if we met in the middle at like 15,000? Would that?
Maybe, yeah, you can negotiate to 15 for one full day a week. I don't know. 1.25 days a month. So,
I think if we put 15 or 16 in there and, you know, we can't negotiate it down, you know, maybe the money gets found somewhere else, you
somewhere
know.
else. So I would make a motion that we bump this line up to 15,000 even. And hope that Eric can negotiate some type of coverage for 15,000 instead of 17,000.
Okay, does anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Kim? Okay, Kim seconds, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, will I take a vote? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, we will change this number to 15,000.
At least that way, when you go back to them, and it looks like we're trying to work with them.
Exactly.
No.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think that was the best way to go.
Okay.
Maybe
Any
they'll
oth-
have pity on us because we're poor.
They probably say the same thing, you know, they're on a municipal budget as well.
Yeah,
Further changes or suggestions on this this section? Okay, I guess we'll move down then. Advertising, so legal ads, these are the ads that I think that we have to put in every time we do things such as have a town budget meeting, we have to notify the town. So we have a slight increase here, $500 based on last 12 months spend,
A lot.
7,300. Well, we had, and the Board of Selectmen adverts. So let's hope we don't have a series of Board of Selectmen advertisements like we have had in the last.
There you go.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this section?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to insurance. So ESIP 10% increase, 23K, estimate Kerma.
Mark,
What's that?
you're breaking up a lot. You're cutting out a lot.
Oh, I am. Sorry. I'll move my speaker closer. Maybe that's
I don't
better.
know what you can do about it, but
So I was just reading the you know, the comments here, this ESIP 10% increase, 23K, estimate Kerma, WC 3%. I assume that's the Kerma workers' comp 3% increase, 41.1. Kerma LAP, I'm not sure what LAP is, 5%.
that's liability and automotive policy.
Okay.
So those are the three major insurance bills that we
Okay.
pay annually. The only thing that's not on here is the payment for the in-ground tank, which is paid by the school.
Okay. So net with a 3.6% change. In line with inflation, so.
And that's, again, those are variable numbers because at some point next year, we're gonna get hit with an increase due to the fact that we're gonna have the squad vehicle online. So that's gonna increase our ESIP insurance. And I think we've already got built in for the community center. So those numbers should hold. So we should be okay with the insurance numbers as they are.
Okay. Any questions for Eric on this?
I do. Eric, I forget, we've had a few Kerma claims in the past. Am I allowed to ask that? Is that too public? Are we in too public of a meeting?
No, you can
I mean, I'm
ask.
not referencing a person
As
or
long as
thing.
we're not talking specific people, I think it's fine.
Right, right. So have we
Sure.
seen a pretty big steady increase in the Kerma side just because of recent claims or anything of that nature?
No, not really.
Okay,
Our
that's,
claim
yeah,
history's actually been pretty good overall.
okay. Thanks. Yep. I'm good.
Other questions? Okay, I guess we can move on to employee benefits. So Social Security and Medicare, so we've got 8% here. This is separate from what we talked about earlier, right? So
I think this is where on the health and dental, that's where you will do the 7%, right, Eric? They'll update it.
Yeah, but that's not gonna affect,
No, I'm just
yes,
all about the corrections. I know it won't. We just want to take every little bit we can, then we can
correct.
okay,
be
you got
current.
flat on unemployment comp. So this is where we said health premiums up 8%.
Yeah.
Lower number of insured. So we have a lower number of people we're insuring, but the premium went up, so we didn't get the full impact of the increase. So you're at a 2.9% change.
And then they still need, right, we'll get that corrected, right?
Yep, that will go down slightly.
All right, anything else? And I assume, Eric, as people come and go or, leave, if that happens before the budget, we can, and Mark, I guess we can update that, like if we get further info on people or,
So we vote on the final budget. Yep.
yeah, employees. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, but again, you don't know, because there's a lot of flux in
Sure.
employees.
Of
So, we're calculating this with no spare in the health or dental insurance. There's a 50-50 chance that'll be over, and a 50-50 chance it'll be under. It just depends
Sure.
on who we hire and what their status is.
I have one thing in mind, wondering like, so we'll just wait a couple weeks and see if we get more info. No, sounds good. Thanks.
Further questions for Eric on this section?
Nope.
Okay, I guess we'll go on to the next section, which is the old town hall. Looks like mostly reductions here, reductions in electricity based on actual usage, and we don't expect a fuel oil tank fill this next year. So actually taking that down by $870. Any questions?
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
Okay, town garage. So a slight increase in medical and drug testing. So are these things like physicals for the CDLs and things like that, Eric, or what are they?
Yeah, that covers both that and the random drug testing
Yeah,
that we're required to do for CDL drivers.
got it. Okay. Electricity's down, again, potentially swapping out some of the electric baseboard heat. Fuel oil down based on the current contract at a low rate, which we were fortunate enough to sign. So good news there. So all in all, we've got a reduction, 3.5%. Any questions there? It's funny how we have no questions when you're reducing the budget.
Yeah. I think we should raise it.
Okay, old firehouse. Oh, God. Wonder when we're gonna be able to take this off the,
Oh, I know.
so we have
We'll
like.
tear it down and build a new one.
Yeah, I know
Right.
until the demolition. So
Right.
fuel oil, yeah, we expect, some fuel oil there. Okay. Any questions for Eric on this?
Yeah,
No,
the
fuel
math
oil
is the math.
screwed up. The only thing is
Ma-
the electrical budget, basically. And the problem is both for the initial demo and also for asbestos abatement, all the contractors we've looked at, it's a town responsibility to supply power and water to that location. So,
Right, but that bottom line isn't mathing to me.
This is a subtotal of several subtotals. So what you gotta look at is this right here.
That's the subtotal. Okay, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I had the same reaction initially. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah.
Because usually there's a description next to the subtotal.
It's
right?
probably
Is that
in,
maybe?
yeah, in the section in the other columns we had, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're probably right. All right.
yeah, they kind of like section to
Okay,
maybe
okay.
signed. I'm not sure, but
That's fine. I'll take your word for it. That's the
yeah, so
220.
both these things, town garage and old firehouse. Okay. Okay. Talking next up, we have the auditor. So this is for the annual audit. So we have an increase there about 11%. This is per the auditor, and you have no formal proposal letter yet. And then we have pretty much flat on actuarial services. So we've been pretty fortunate. I think we have a good town auditor. It's appropriate for our town. I think we're pretty fortunate to have for the amount of work he's had to put in over the last few years.
Mhm.
Any comments on this?
It is a big jump, but I mean, like you said, we do have a person that's been steady and has worked with the treasurer and everything that you said. They've done a good job and he understands the town now. So I couldn't read the whole.
Oh, it just says this is the
Oh,
amount is
yeah,
for
that's
the
totally.
auditor, but we don't have a formal.
Okay, so that's just an approximate. Eric, do you think we might have the letter, the actual before? We'll just wait and see. Sorry, I won't get caught up on this. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never gotten them out of Mike on time. So no. Do I think I'm gonna get a formal letter from him? No, but he's informally emailed us and said this is what they're gonna charge for the next cycle.
Right, so next
Okay,
fiscal year, yeah.
fair enough.
Okay,
Okay. Further questions or comments? All right, we'll go down to the town attorney. This is Dennis Johnson. He's requesting a $1,000 raise, also including labor attorney, planning and zoning committee, commission litigation. So he is, projected budget was 15K. We're going up to 16K. I
Yeah,
don't know. My view,
so
we got to
that-
deal with Dennis, but yeah, Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, so that line item covers two things. That covers the town attorney, and it also covers my use of a labor attorney when labor issues come up. So that's not all Dennis. Dennis's retainer is actually pretty low. That leaves me about $1,500 to $2,000 a year to use legal advice from a labor attorney.
mhm.
Further questions or comments in this section?
Mm-mm.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now then. Town engineer, we're flat. Questions or comments? Okay, probate court. This is a budget established by the probate court. So until we hear that, we won't know for sure, Eric.
Yeah, no, we ask them every year what their budget's gonna be, and they'll get around to sending it to us eventually. But
Okay.
our budget will probably be passed by the time that happens, so it's just a guess.
Okay. It hasn't been a big issue in the past, so. Okay, so the Sierra Cog, Connecticut Regional Council of Governments, Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and what's COST?
Council of Small Towns.
Council of Small Towns, right? Okay, so these are our membership fees for these organizations?
Yeah, that's correct.
And they've
So
been
I
instrumental in
do,
assisting us, I think, with a lot of things, so.
yeah, so I think I do have final numbers for both of those. So I think we are okay with our current budget now.
Okay. So we're in the ballpark within a couple $100.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Further questions or comments from the board on that?
All set with me.
Okay. So we'll go down to Public Works. This is a pretty significant section. So we have a 3% increase in salary, overtime, same factor. Adding a few $100s for fire extinguisher testing. And the note here is that it includes the additional buildings based on 12 months of cost. Okay, so you're just factoring that up, not a big increase. Reducing for vehicle maintenance. Is this just based on history, Eric? What we did?
Yeah, that was, yes.
Yeah, I think we did.
Jay kind of developed this budget and he went over it with you, so I'm
Yeah, he
not sure.
talked, I think it might have been that they don't expect to replace as many tires this year or something like that.
Yeah.
Remember exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
He had
he
a- he
gave
had
you
a-
the full
right.
budget breakdown. I don't have that open right now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we went through that pretty closely when he was on. Anybody have any questions on the Public Works budget?
I don't have, well, if anyone has questions on a particular line, I have a thought that I wanted to bring forward. So
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking, I mean, I know eventually we're going to have to get to a place where we have to try to make some cuts, you know, whether it be in a fund or something like this. I think this is a big part of the budget. Jay was great. They do a great job, and he also brings forward all his spreadsheets that we were able to look at. I wouldn't be opposed to trying to make a cut somewhere in here, hoping that knowing now that they can transfer money within lines is my thought. So say we ask them to, you know, cut a line in supplies or whatever, I'm going to look at it further. And then knowing that if they run short in one of their lines, they're able to transfer their money around. I mean, I felt like Jay knew that it was a tight year. He kind of said, you know, I don't know. Is anyone?
Do you want to make a specific motion?
All right,
or
so
you want
let me
just
shut my
wait
thing so I can
see?
get closer and make a motion in a moment or an idea. So I'll be right there. I will be right back with it.
What line are we looking at right now?
I'm gonna let you know, with the thought of even if
Sorry.
I make a cut to a line or suggest a cut to a $457,000 budget, I'm hoping that they're and thinking and pretty much knowing from working with budgets that there'll be money somewhere since we had a $300,000, you know, surplus this year that they can fill in the gaps. Just trying to make inroads in the budget. So my thought would be okay, that's a 500. Okay, I'm going to propose that I don't want to put anything that I know they're going to need, but I'm banking on this huge amount of money. So go ahead. Does someone else have a thought?
Yeah, well, the only thing I would say is that keep in mind out of that 457,000, the vast majority of it is
Salary.
salary and overtime, right? So
Yeah.
we have a total of a little less than $100,000 in raw expenditures. Some things such as fire extinguisher testing are just non-negotiable. You have to do that every year.
Well,
course.
gas, diesel, I mean, some of it's.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that are just guesses, right? Vehicle maintenance, diesel, gasoline, supplies. They've probably got a pretty good history, but
Right.
those are
And
the,
none of it's easy. I'm just gonna propose something. If it doesn't go, it doesn't go. So you're right. I understand. So looking at it, it's about 100,000. So I'm gonna make a motion that we reduce the supply line. I don't know if I have to say 301-620-56010 by 3,500. And so I'm gonna make that, is that 16,500?
Yeah, 16,500.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second
I'll
it.
second it.
Okay,
I'll second it.
I'll second it, yeah.
okay, further discussion?
I was just gonna say, none of this is easy, just making an attempt to whittle away a little bit here and see how they can do. So that's my discussion.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
I
All those opposed?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's nay.
Huh?
Nothing. I was saying nay. It was nay, not I.
Well, unfortunately,
A tie.
Louise is not here, so it's a tie, so.
Oh, Mark, I didn't hear you. Right. I mean, I was
Yeah,
wondering if
I'm
motions
not,
are
yeah,
even
I don't want to
gonna.
vote for it at this time.
Yeah,
So I would say, let's
just
maybe,
trying.
the motion doesn't pass. So
All right, it
maybe
did
what
not
we
pass.
can do
We
is
can-
we can revisit this
We
next
can
meeting.
revisit. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Think
All
about it
right.
a little bit.
That's my only motion on this particular.
Okay. All right, we can go ahead and go to the next section if there's any. Snow removal. This one's always just an estimate, right? So how are we doing this year on this, Eric?
We're gonna be under budget, but we're gonna be pretty close this year.
Mark, they had a lot of storms. I mean, just from, they had a lot of storms that we can never tell. They were weekends, overtime, tons of overtime, probably holidays. So I'm sure they ate up a lot of their budget this year.
Yeah,
It's just another one.
this
you can
one's
never
always a
tell.
crapshoot. We could have a great year
Yeah.
and have a significant surplus, or we could have a really tough year and end up having to tap the funds.
Right.
I
Absolutely.
hate to do. But
Yeah. No motions from Joanne on this one.
any further questions or comments? Yeah, it's a big nut. I like leaving it where it is.
Yeah.
Okay, if nobody's got anything else, we'll move on to the next section, which is the transfer station. Okay, so we got a 6% increase in wages. They're still pretty low all over overall. Compactor lease went up quite a bit, huh?
Yep.
Last year incorrectly getting billed for a single compactor. I think you spoke.
You talked about that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
you
got
can look
money
at it
to go
either
out.
two ways. One, we got screwed, or two, they've been
got lucky.
undercharging us for the past 5 years, which they have been.
So we're.
Hmm.
Guess
They
all depends how
finally
you look
figured
at it.
out that they owned 2 of the compactors at the transfer station. You know, why they didn't understand they owned them before, because they've always been the ones that are maintaining those 2 of them, and servicing them, but they just finally got around to billing us for them.
Oh, boy.
I'm happy about the tipping fees, but is there a reason why they've gone
Yeah.
down so much?
Gonna ask about that too. Is that just the actual?
Yeah, that's just based on actuals. We didn't know, this is our second year of the Casella contract. And there's a bunch of fees in there that they make those contracts very hard to figure out. Anyway, our tipping fees have been reduced, so that's been good. We've been over budgeting consistently on those. What we're way under budgeting for is that bloody energy and environmental fee, which is kind of a catch-all fee that it's really hard to figure out how they calculate it. So that's my best guess based on what we've been getting billed lately.
Okay. So net, yeah.
I was gonna ask about the brush pile removal. I mean, $20,000, there's nothing else we can do about brush. It's like, seems like.
You
holy
have some
crap.
loppers, Bill?
I'm sorry?
You have some loppers?
I got some gasoline and a match.
There you go. Yeah, we'll have a big bonfire.
Have a bonfire, you know, bring some beer.
That works.
Social connection.
$20,000 for brush
I
removal.
know, it's terrible.
Crazy.
Yeah, we've gone back and forth on this, you know, in the several years that I've been on the Board of Finance. It's one of these things that we just have to budget for every couple of years. And you know, we've argued, you know, if you split it into a third and then budget a third every year. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. We know we're going to have to do it. So if we think it's going to cost that, you know, we probably just need to take care of it. Yeah. How firm is that number, Eric?
The last time we had it done was about 18 grand. So depending on exactly when we do it, I would anticipate it would be that or a little bigger. So, because the pile's fairly big at the moment. And by the time the next budget season rolls around in the summer, it's going to be a pretty aggressively big pile.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the amount of storms and trees that have been coming down. It's probably a big brush pile.
Yeah.
Well, remember, that's just stuff that people bring to the brush,
Oh.
the pile. That's just what homeowners bring. And
Okay.
unfortunately, it would be nice to use the distinctive tree care chipper to chip it up. But the problem is people aren't very responsible about only bringing clean stuff there. So inevitably, there's metal in there and other junk. So really, you got to throw it through what's called the tub grinder. And those are just stupidly expensive pieces of machinery to operate.
What happens to the trees like the ones that fell on Long Hill, Eric? How do we get rid of those?
So it depends. Something like that, a pine, we get rid of it however we can. We can dump some stuff on our pit. Pines, nobody wants to burn, so we can almost never give that away for firewood. So we end up getting, if the utility company doesn't deal with it, we end up getting distinctive tree care or somebody else to haul it away and dispose of it.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Any questions for Eric on the transfer station? Further questions, I should say. Okay, hearing none, we'll go down to recycling. Yeah.
Well,
Hazardous waste down slightly, used oil pickup, that's a pretty big bump, up 20%, 27% per contract, Western Oil. Okay. Antifreeze pickup, same thing, okay. Slight increase in the tire pickups. And no new cost improvements. Anybody have any questions here?
Nothing for me.
Okay.
Nothing.
Go into ground care, so we have a slight increase for mowing. And you have a note here, needs adjusting, no current contracts.
Yeah, so Andover Landscaping informed us that they're not going to do it anymore. We think we have another company that's agreed to do it at that. I got to decide whether I send that whole project out to RFP and get bids on it this spring. For the non-field mowing, which is the cheap stuff. The field mowing's the expensive part. And this isn't just mowing. This is the majority of this cost is the cost of maintaining the athletic field. Both the sprinkler system and mowing the field and irrigating the field and fertilizing it and grubs and all that stuff. So that's what most of the ground care cost is. The beautification commission sent you a big spreadsheet on everything they want to do. That line item was a fairly significant
Yeah.
increase. But for the most part, it's a bunch of volunteers that do the labor themselves. So you get a lot of bang for your buck, but it is a jump in cost.
Well, there's some additional area with the community center too, right? There's kind of like additional areas being added to that all the time. I'm thinking like the new sign going in for town, like there's more areas that have to be beautified every year too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if you look at gets done versus what's spent, you know, it's generally, they do a pretty good job. I mean, I don't fault them at all. They're a bunch of volunteers that like to go out and plant stuff and make the town look good. So as far as
They
I'm
do a
concerned,
nice
it's money
job.
well spent, but it is an increase, so.
Mark, can I ask about the mowing care again? I mean, it
Sure.
comes up as, and wait a minute. Yeah, I know we talk about it. It just, this is nothing that our public works can't handle, you know, and we have to contract out. I mean, I know you've explained it and all. It just seemed, it's been a point of contention, and I've heard from taxpayers that they just ask me things when they look at things, or they know we got the brand new mower. And I know you just said it doesn't include all of mowing, but does our public works have time to, I'm not managing their time. It's just a big expense. Do they have time to fit in some of this work possibly?
So we do roadside mowing.
Yeah, it's not a mower like a
Um,
lawnmower.
We don't do a lot of finish mowing, and frankly, what we pay for per year for that stuff is cheap enough that I wouldn't want, it would cost us more in labor cost to have Public Works do it than to sub that out.
Okay.
Because
Nope, that's, again, I know my area of expertise. This isn't it. That's all I want to say. I mean, because I get it from the taxpayers, like Bill just said, like, thank you, right, it's the big mower. You just
It's a
get these
big roadside mower,
right,
It-
that we
it's not a
needed, right.
lawnmower.
Yep. But I
right,
mean, we could get a town lawnmower. We buy huge pieces of equipment, so
True.
we just go for the big stuff here. So I mean, I was
Yeah.
just kind of weighing that,
Eric,
but
Eric makes a good point, though. Landscape, we'd end up paying, union municipal rates to
Yep.
get somebody to do it. So yeah, that's
yeah, and we don't, most towns have a parks department. We don't. So, I mean, essentially, a lot of the parks related stuff, we just sub straight out to Hebron
Got
Parks
it.
and Rec.
we're more of
You know.
a road crew and nope, thank you.
Yep.
Enough said with that. I get it. Thanks for the explanation.
other questions there? And move on to street lighting, which is slightly reduced based on 6 months of data. Any rate increase, obviously, we've heard a little bit about electrical rate increases. But, seems reasonable. If nobody has any questions, move on to the custodian. So this is down a little bit, so I assume it's based pretty much on the actual, yeah, okay, so it includes community center, town hall, and library based on current actual costs, so we're reduced a little bit from last year's budget. Any questions on that?
No.
Is that for fewer hours because they're working fewer hours, or?
Yeah, so when
Wonder
we
why.
added the community center, we really didn't have a good feel for how many hours on a weekly basis it would take that to keep that building clean. Now we
Okay.
do have a pretty good estimate. So now we're just basing it off of actual hours. And we do use them for a lot of side projects, office painting, putting up all the panels for sound deadening, windows, trim, all that kind of stuff too. So it's all kind of built into one budget And that covers multiple locations.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess we'll go on to resident trooper. Always a interesting topic to discuss. This is basically set, and I think this is pretty firm, right, Eric? Based, we know who's going to be Trooper Cook per Department of Emergency Services estimate 2.5.
So we know who our trooper is going to be. We have an estimate from the state based on his salary and indirects. But again, they don't, that's just the best guess they give us. So that's what I budget for. It could very easily be $5,000 or $10,000 more or less, but that is exactly what their budget estimate is based on him.
And that's the entire fee that we would pay him? There's nothing else? That's it? That includes his car and et cetera, et cetera?
Correct. That's salary and indirects. So basically what myself and a bunch of the smaller towns that use resident state troopers went back and argued with the legislature that the state should go back to, because at one time towns paid half the cost, and then they eventually shifted it up to 100%, and they really jacked up the indirect costs. So our costs were very expensive. And we went back to the legislature and got the legislature to work with the state police to lower the indirects, and give us some credit for the fact that even though he's our resident state trooper, he does get called out to do other things occasionally. So that's
Okay.
where we're at these days.
Okay.
How many hours would we expect to see him around our town?
So typically he works 5 8-hour shifts per week.
In our town, Eric, 5 8-hour shifts per week.
Yes, correct.
And it could
However,
be,
Those
it
are
could be-
somewhat flexible, right? Like we can, it's not necessarily 9 to 5 every day, right?
That's
no,
what I'm
and
Right.
we deliberately have our resident trooper work some of all 3 shifts. So we work some first shift, some second shift, some third shift, and it's on a rotation so that nobody knows exactly when, we don't tell anybody when the trooper is on as kind of an additional deterrent.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any of you were around a few years ago when there was a discussion about removing this from the line item, the townspeople made their wishes known
Very known.
quite clearly.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's not a rail I feel like touching again.
Nope.
I remember Robert's description of it. That's all I have.
Is that to remove the trooper?
Yeah.
Right.
We
Sure.
suggested it one year only because we were having a real tough time with a budget passing, and it's one of the single largest line items in the town side budget. So we said, okay, we could go to barracks coverage. If we just can't pass a budget, here's one way to cut it. And I think the vote on that, they was something like 4-1 against.
Mhm.
Right,
Oh,
right.
In a year where we were having a real big time,
Mhm.
real big struggle passing a budget. Oh,
I mean, I've had people say things to me this year about, the resident trooper, and I say, well, if you're concerned about it, then you need to write a letter and let us know, or let someone know.
Yeah.
That, and if you don't get a letter, then, it's just talk.
What I would even
What
say,
happened was we had a meeting about it, like a public, meeting, budget
They
hearing.
should
I think it was
come to
the
the
the hearing, and in the town hall there, and lots of people turned up to express their support for
Right.
keeping it.
Right.
And it was a very unpopular position to be saying, well, we don't really have a noticeably different crime rate than surrounding towns, or comparable towns, sorry, that some of whom have full-on police departments, some of whom have resident state troopers, some of which have just rely on barracks coverage. And there was no correlation, but That's, people
Right.
had specific reasons they liked having the trooper, and yeah, that was not a popular approach
Yeah.
to budget.
So, yeah, so anybody who asks, you should probably give them that background, but it's certainly an option for anyone to come to the town budget meeting and make a motion to remove that line item from the budget.
Right.
That's how it would get removed, and then we would have to vote on it. So I wouldn't give much of
I
its
wouldn't give
chance
much chance to it.
passing, but that would
Um,
be if you could get enough like-minded people, who knows,
Right.
So. Okay, fire department, fire commission. So it was a pretty big nut here. There is a backup spreadsheet. I don't think it's in here, is it? Or is there a tab?
No, it's, I don't.
It's separate,
there's no
right?
tab for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joanne just said her computer shut down. She's trying to get back on.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, you have to admit her? Tell them to admit me.
I don't see it coming up. Do you see it, Eric?
Nope. I don't see anybody to admit, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see anybody to admit. Yeah, usually we get a pop-up that says admit this person and they'll show in the participants, but I don't see anything there.
Yeah, Liz, maybe you could have her completely log off and log back on again.
You mean shutting the Zoom all the way down and then opening it back up? Is that what
Yeah,
you mean?
Yeah.
yeah. Because otherwise you'll have 14 Zoom meetings open at the same time and
Hmm.
it'll just get very complicated.
Eric, the reference spreadsheet, is that in the budget? I don't see that we received that via email.
Yeah, hang on a sec. I'll figure out where it's at.
There's a 10-year capital plan for the fire department. There's a request for the SCBA packs. But I don't see a spreadsheet unless it's in department budgets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in department budgets,
department
25, 26 fire
Yeah,
commission budget.
yeah, I found it. Okay.
There Joanne is. I'll admit her now.
Yep, good. Welcome back, Joanne. You're muted. I don't know if you can hear us.
Thank you. I am so sorry. Thank you for waiting. That was a nightmare. I'm back.
Don't worry
That's
about
okay.
it.
We're all working together.
Thank you. Back.
All right, I am going to change my share to the fire department budget. Just downloaded it. So the requested amount is 167,350, which is But I don't know what they're doing here. That's not how you do that calculation. So this is the breakout. So it looks like they're mostly flat with last year's budget. Reduction in vehicle maintenance, increase in equipment maintenance. So we have a net increase. Communications, that's probably the radios, that's in depth. Protective clothing, 25K, office supplies, 5K. I assume that's firefighting supplies, hazmat, training, cost recovery. You know what cost recovery would be, Eric, offhand, or anybody? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's a fee that's due to the Tallinn Dispatch Center. But for what exactly, I don't know. For some reason, we get a bill and the fire department gets a bill.
Okay. And then physicals are just the annual physicals that the firefighters have to undergo.
So we're asking for a $200 increase. Is that right?
Yeah, so it looks like. And verifying that with last year, yeah, the budget spreadsheet reflects the same.
And what do their actuals look like for now?
I don't know that their estimated amount is 167,375, so about what they're asking for this budget. For reference, in 23-24, they spent about 153,152, so about 12,000 less, 14,000 less. Would anybody have any comments or questions on this? I think we need to probably ask questions before we reduce it. And we're certainly not going to increase it.
Right.
So
5,000 for office supplies, or is that, yeah, I don't know. Seems high to me, but I don't know.
yeah, it'd be interesting to find out what that's for. I mean, it could be all kinds of stuff in there, right?
Yeah, without knowing, I'm not gonna.
So this is kind of the fire commission. It's in a way, they're kind of like the Board of Education. They're the first line of approval for this type of thing. So we could always go back to them. If anybody has anything specific, we could have them come back and kind of explain these numbers. I think Wally had offered to do that.
What is FF supplies? Does anybody know that line 252?
Probably firefighting supplies.
Oh,
So,
firefighting supplies. Oh, okay.
yeah, it could be, it could be all kinds of different things that they use as consumables. Could be, stuff that they use to clean and maintain the vehicles, although that may be an equipment maintenance or vehicle maintenance, but.
I guess the only comment I have, and I support the fire department 100%, it just looks like all the numbers are exact zeros. Like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's like there's no $3,751, and it's like it's
Well,
just 25,000.
You've been in business as long as I have, Bill.
I know.
And you know what it's like. It's the only reason you get things like $17,359.20 is one of two reasons. A, you have a quote, or
Yeah.
B, you took last year's and added 3.25% to it, right? So,
Right. Okay.
That reminds me of the real estate adage where they would say people were charging, $320,000 for their house. If they'd have priced it at $332,000 and, $258, they'd actually get the higher amount because people thought, oh, they went and calculated it. So it must be the precise measure,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get exactly what you're saying, but it's ballpark, but if their actuals are in there, so.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Did I miss any categories, Mark? Was there one above this?
No, we were just kind of waiting for you to get back in.
Oh,
trying to
perfect.
figure out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so again, if you looked at the actuals, the actual for 23-24 is 153,000. The budget for last year was 167,150. Estimated expense for this year is 167,350. 375,
Mhm.
slightly above, and they're just basically rounding it out.
Request.
Yeah, but I mean, short of having like a financial report for them showing their actuals and like where it's going and really digging into that, I think that we're kind of left to what they've told us here. Yep, Joanne?
The only thing that can, and I'm glad you went back to this because so I could refresh myself, is like I know the building maintenance I thought was a 20,000 and a 20,000, they kept it level. How much maintenance goes into the building every year? But again,
That was my
without
question.
knowing,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's if you're maintaining a building, again, it's like I don't know how much it's used, how much wear and tear, so I don't want to speak to things I'm not an expert at. But
Right.
do they do certain things one year and then they don't have to do it the next year so we can save there? Yeah.
Well, and building maintenance may even be things like custodial stuff where they clean and polish the floors, empty the trash.
Right.
Could be a lot of things, yeah, because
Mhm.
they don't have as long of a list of specific accounts.
Yeah. And Eric, remind me, is this is the fire department where they're getting like the new cabinets and all that stuff this year?
The fire department did request from CIP new
Mhm.
cabinets and new countertops, correct?
Yeah. And I'm just trying to put it, I know it's not in here. No, I have to tour some of these buildings as well. Nope, thank you.
And that purchase would be in this budget that we're working on right now. That would be in the capital, or
Yeah,
what
it
would
would be
that
a
be?
capital, it'd be a separate capital.
In a fund, right? Yeah.
Right, that comes out of one of the capital funds, and that
Mhm.
will probably get done in what's in the building maintenance fund because in a sense, it doesn't matter whether you do it this year, or next year, the money is currently in the fund, so.
That's good. Yeah. Okay.
So does anybody want to make a motion to make any changes here, or do we want to leave it as is? And
I'm good.
we can always come back if we find something.
Mhm.
Animal control, so slight increase over last year. So this is as we've got noted here, the NECOG contract. Is it NECOG's the Northeast Council of Governments or something, or?
Correct.
Yeah, so we've
It's
got
their
a
regional animal control
consortium for
facility.
okay. So not probably sure much we can do about that. That's our shared stuff. Fire marshal. Not much change here. There's the fire marshal and deputy salaries with a 4% increase. Anybody have any questions or concerns there? Okay,
No.
move on. Senior citizens. So we have the resident services coordinator, small increase, almost nil. Senior lunches, we've got a significant increase, $7,500. And the note here, this is per the Board of Selectmen meeting on February 3rd. They must have voted to increase this. Is that just going up because we're servicing the seniors more in the community center now? Eric, do you know offhand?
Right. That would be a great
So
question. Yeah.
they had a big long powwow about
Yeah.
how much they wanted to charge the seniors and how much they wanted to fund that. And that's essentially what they decided to fund it at.
And Eric, for information, I think I found they charge the seniors. Maybe I saw Louise at a meeting and she told me, but it's $10 a lunch, I think, that the seniors already pay. Maybe in the past they paid $5 a lunch.
Correct. It's
And
what-
then does this budget supply whatever's left to pay for the food? I mean, I want our seniors to be treated well. I know they waited a long time for a building and, a lot of them have, thank goodness they're getting to use it. So I don't really understand. Was it woefully underfunded and they were running out of money?
So the answer is it depends. It depends how much you want to charge the seniors. I think the Board of Selectmen has said they don't want the seniors charged more than $5 for lunch, basically. So that fee
Okay.
accomplishes that and gets a uniform funding for the seniors.
Because I've heard at recent lunches, they charge 10, so now they kind of want to circle back to 5 and then supply the rest of the money for the seniors.
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, just, it was a big increase, so that, yep, thank you for the info.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you explain what the resident services coordinator is, Eric?
Sure. The resident services coordinator, it's kind of a catch-all term for, let me just pull up the job description for that. Because frankly, it's tired. I'm still on my Orca time. So that's
I
easier.
know, it's getting late.
Yeah.
Actually, how about I just send you the job description for that?
Okay.
Basically that person does a bunch of things. One, they handle all the renters rebates. The state requires all towns to have a point of contact for how to use the 211 system, how to manage the oil assistance program, all of those kinds of things. That person also is our coordinator for if we have a hoarding situation. She's kind of one of the leads on the hoarding task force. It's a whole range of social services that the town provides residents.
Right, okay, so basically that's the municipal agent, right? I guess I didn't recognize that. It's all coming back to me now.
Yes, so this is one of those kind of oddities in that in our charter, and I don't think it's been ever been changed. The state mandated all towns to have a municipal agent.
Yes.
And the town, when they adopted, made a change in an ordinance to have a municipal agent. They specified that the agent would be unpaid.
Yes.
Yeah,
However, it's fairly hard to find a volunteer that's willing to work in the town hall 10 hours a week, which is what the state says is the minimum staffing level, for free. So we've always gotten around it by just throwing that in as one of the duties in a position that we call resident services coordinator. So that's what we've been doing.
Eric, to follow up on it, since it was brought up, I know we were gonna maybe ask a couple of things later, but since you talked on it, it definitely is in the charter. We have discovered that it's supposed to be a volunteer,
Mhm.
right?
Do you want to volunteer?
No, I mean, listen, my husband already tells me that I could be a millionaire for the amount of time that I do volunteer for the town and spend researching. So I actually already do. So maybe I will, but, and not a problem there as far as giving my service to the town, which I take really seriously. But that is a topic that we will discuss and we have a couple thoughts on it, but I'd rather not talk about it in public. So, but Liz did ask about it and I thought it's always been under the senior citizens tab too. I know it's a stipend that a person gets to do that thing. So we'll leave it at that for now unless Liz has follow up.
Well, I'm good.
Yeah.
Anybody want to propose any changes here or just got further discussion? Okay, I guess move on to Andover Senior Transportation. So small increase in driver dispatch salary, the 3% factor. Some for commercial drivers test. Vehicle maintenance up quite a bit. That's based on the last 12 months, it looks like, of actual selectmen discussed increase by $35 to accommodate rust proofing and vehicle wash. Nobody rust proofs a car anymore, geez. No. Sorry, editorial comment there. I should
Yeah.
So vehicle maintenance up quite a bit, so, all right, 12.5.
Yeah, this is about one of the vehicles the Board of Selectmen has been talking about for the past couple of cycles that's in rough shape.
No, rust proofing is not gonna help, I'll tell you that. Keep it washed, maybe it helps, but
Right.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
The washing, yeah, it has been. a
Poor
topic.
maintenance, poor
Yeah.
maintenance habits. Yeah. In a
That's
nutshell,
another
in a
question
nutshell.
Of an executive session, if you want to discuss vehicle washing.
I'm
And
not
see-
sure I can take that.
And only these, we do go to the meetings, so we do hear it, so, right, understood.
Okay, so we got a total, I mean, a significant amount, most of it's driver salary, but obviously vehicle maintenance is significant, and they're not getting any, I mean, they're difficult to maintain vehicles, some of these, I'm sure. Anybody have any suggestions, questions, comments on this?
Nope.
All right. Eastern Highlands Health Officer, so the Health District budget adopted in January. This is the final number. It is what it is. This is a required position. Amplify Mental Health, the regional agency provides services to Andover, mostly state funded, $250. Don't see an issue there. Social services, $1,000. This access is the social service agency. It covers Andover. So it's like a donation. The request letter is just kind of what they're requesting.
Yeah, so
remember.
by law, we have to have a series of social services agencies. In this area, the Access Agency provides that for the town of Andover. In no way can we really have our own full-blown agency. 90 something% of their budget is from the state and federal government. They do ask for a little donation from all the towns they serve.
Okay.
So we've typically funded that.
Yeah, I remember that now. Okay. If nobody has any questions on that, the AHM Youth Services, we actually voted on this in February to approve that. So that takes us down into these sections. So I'm gonna make a suggestion here. We've plowed through a lot of this, made some changes, marked some things for future consideration. We're getting fairly close, but we still have quite a bit to really run through here. So we could do one of two things. We could keep going. We could adjourn, or we could go into executive session. Joanne said she had a couple of things she wanted to mention in executive session. So
I'll speak to that, Mark. I agree. When we came to it, if we went through, I was going to ask because I don't want to force people, when it gets very late, it's hard to get people in and it's been a long night already. So whatever people want to do, I'm good with whatever. I wouldn't mind. Well, we could go into executive session and I could just say the couple things that I wanted to say, and then we could, it's nothing that requires anything have to be done tonight or anything.
okay,
Or
so
I
you
could
don't think
save
it'll
it till
take
next week. I could save it till next week if everyone's getting exhausted, I'm
Well,
fine
if you
with
think it's
that.
5 minutes or less, I'd say let's take care of it now. That'd be my opinion.
Anyone else? Should we
Bill,
go
Bill,
or
you're
should?
muted.
Oh,
No,
No,
Bill's muted.
Oh.
that's fine.
I would say like 5 minutes or less, like it's getting late, so if you want
Right,
to.
so I mean, it's so important that I don't want to feel like it's, I mean, ladies, weigh in too. Do you think this should be a tonight thing? Should it be a wait thing? What do you think we should do? I just want everyone's opinion,
Well,
because I do not
Not
like
everybody's
forcing-
here. Yeah, Louise wasn't able to be here tonight. Maybe it would be good if she was able to be
Maybe
here
good to
too.
wait.
Yeah,
Good-
so
good
so
point.
because this situation can wait, let's adjourn on, thank you. Yeah, let's
Okay.
adjourn on that, because I don't want to get everybody with a
Yeah.
tired head, because I know what that feels like too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
if it goes longer than 5 minutes too, I don't, you know.
Yeah, and I don't want to have to rush it, then I get all, so this is fine.
Agreed.
We can,
Yep.
Yep.
let's definitely, we'll put an executive session on our meeting agenda for next
For next
week. Eric, is Kate back yet? Or,
Yeah, she should be back, right? She was supposed to be back Monday, I think.
oh, I couldn't remember when. That
Yeah,
sounds
I went and looked because I wasn't sure either, but I think she's back Monday.
Sure. I'm good with that, and then whatever anybody else wants to do with for tonight, I know it's a lot.
I make the motion to
finally-
adjourn.
Okay,
Okay.
Bill makes a
I'll
motion.
second it.
Liz seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Oh,
Rob, I thought you might oppose it. Okay.
is it too
Any
late to
any
ask?
opposed?
I resemble that remark.
So I can't ask one final thing. Can I ask Eric something before he shuts off the? I just wanted to ask if we
Yep.
adjourned or whatever, so we'll get the changes that we made tonight. We can get them reflected, get the health insurance update, then we can kind of see
Yeah.
where we're at. I know.
Eric, I'll save, I've been running the meetings, so I've been one making changes in the spreadsheet. So I will forward these to you, Eric, and you can make any other adjustments and post it whenever you're done. Fair enough. Okay.
And then if we could like pick some kind of, like orange or something to really stand out where the changes were made so that we know where the changes were made, so we don't have to circle back and ask that. That would be awesome.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So getting back to our
All right.
vote, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Have a good
Okay.
night, everyone.
Night.
Night.
Thanks. Night.